The top 10 most dangerous jobs in the world. Lay down for a year and make 1 million. But it has to be alive. Do you dare to challenge? The next installment of the Super Factory will take you explore the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the world. Please long press like, comment plus subscribe. The 10th Lumberjack says there is a profession. Every time I go up the mountain, it means that there may be a. The family was involved in a tragic accident. The occupation is to engage in timber harvesting, lumberjack at work. It's also about deforestation, workers working in the first process. Nicknamed the Widowmaker. It can be said that for every 10,000 loggers in a year, nearly 13 people died on the job. The risk factor is quite high. And the reason why it's so dangerous is caused by several factors. The first is a high altitude fall, due to the fact that this profession sometimes requires trees to cut down. So the instability caused, so that workers can fall from height due to stumbling. So in order to avoid this situation, workers need long-term training. Master its methods and skills to reduce the likelihood of accidents. The second one is the one that needs to be controlled during the logging, the direction in which Dwan Mu fell. In fact, according to the current level of technology, there are lots of alternatives. Logging machine. But some trees grow too tall. Not suitable for machine work. It can only be felled manually by workers. And the workers in the project. You need to take your life to block the direction of the tree falling, once the tree collapses in the direction of the loggers. The consequences are immeasurable. The 9th coal miner has a profession. Claimed to be one of the dirtiest professions in the world. He was a coal miner. Coal miner. It refers to the working group engaged in coal mining. Depending on the type of mine, it can also be divided into iron ore, main metal mine underground worker, and non-metals, mainly coal mines, mine underground worker. But it can be said that no matter what kind, it is one of the most dangerous professions in the world. In the process, they have to dig shipping lanes, mining coal and transporting it, etc. But the working conditions are extremely harsh. First of all, the underground space is extremely dark and humid, and very narrow. In the event of a cave island collapse, it is extremely difficult to rescue. And not only that, in the air, there was a lot of harmful substances and dust. Carbon monoxide, gas, etc. It is harmful to the human body, but not beneficial. Every time a worker finished a day's work, their faces and ears, etc., all stained with a thin layer of black powder. Even the saliva is black, and sometimes extremely difficult to clean. If you work in this environment for a long time, extremely susceptible to pneumoconiosis, cardiopulmonary disease, and other diseases. 8th place communication tower dupe. Communication tower, also known as the dancer walking on the spire. It is a kind of communication tower construction, maintenance, and overhaul professionals. It can be said that it is full of challenges and dangers. The main content of its work is installation of communication towers and the installation of equipment, maintenance, communication tower, etc. It is often required to be within tens of meters, even work at an altitude of hundreds of meters. In the process, in the event of a safety equipment failure, or there is an operation error of the staff, there could be an irreversible tragedy. And not only that, there are usually various types of communication equipment installed on the communication tower. And these devices usually carry a certain voltage. If the worker accidentally touches it during operation, an electric shock is highly likely. Very high risk factor. At the same time, bad weather is also an extremely dangerous factor. One, if it's windy weather, the tower may shake. If there is a strong wind, it may also cause the tower bow to lose its balance, to be blown off or bruised. Not to mention if it's a rainstorm and a blizzard. It can also make communication towers slippery, makes climbing difficult, greatly increase the difficulty of the homework. 7 Alaskan crab catchers. The occupation is in Alaska, USA. Engaged at sea, the labor force that catches Alaskan king crab. According to statistics, every time the crabbing season comes, every 7 days, a disdainful worker died in the Bering Sea. 50 times that of the average worker. It's arguably one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. The workplace of this occupation is located especially in the icy Arctic Circle. Its climate conditions are severe. The temperature is usually -5 degrees to -10 degrees. Working in such cold conditions often leads to hand cramps. You might not even notice frostbite. By the time it was discovered, it was already very serious. Not to mention the wind and waves on the sea. It often sets off waves as high as 10 meters. And strong sea breezes of nearly 30 per hour. And in this case, the hull will also be covered with a thick layer of ice. Increases the hull load. It also increases the chances of survival in the event of large waves, greatly reduce, but behind the huge risk. Sometimes there are huge hidden benefits. Unremitting workers only need to work 5 to 12 days a year, can get very high wages. If it were the captain, you can make millions of dollars just by going to sea once. The sixth oil rig worker. The occupation is in the oil industry and professionals in natural gas drilling operations. Working location in the desert Gobi all year round, or in the mountains in the wilderness. Not only inconvenient transportation, medical assistance and logistical support are also very difficult. Every time I work, they're standing on platforms that are meters tall. Participate in the location and construction of the scenic spot. Responsible for the commissioning and installation of working equipment, and into the mines. Conduct professional drilling operations. After completion, cementing operations are required, but not too much work. There's a lot of risk involved. For example, when standing on a high platform, need to be covered in mud. Dealing with stump-heavy drill pipe. The footsteps contain falling objects and poisonous. Threats such as gas damage. And not only that, explosion, collapse, etc. is one of the dangers that threaten the lives of drilling workers. It can be said that once the danger period occurs, the survival rate is extremely low. But the most dangerous thing is a spray accident. When high-pressure oil and gas layers are encountered during operation, if not properly controlled, oil and gas are very likely to suddenly eject from the wellhead, form a blowout, likely to cause fire. Accidents such as explosions is a huge security risk. Fifth place, Everest Guide. The Everest Guide is also known as the Sherpa Guide. The Sherpa people mainly live in Nepal, or plateau. They are a famous group of tour guides to the summit of Mount Everest, according to studies in their blood. Nitric oxide levels are higher than normal, can better adapt to low oxygen levels. And according to a 2017 study, it was found that Sherpa strand DNA, oxygen can be used more efficiently to produce ATP. This also Sherpas are more suitable for taking on the direction of Mount Everest. Lead this responsibility. In addition to that, they also have lower levels of fat oxidation. This means that they produce energy much more efficiently. Their physical abilities are different from ordinary people, but this is special, indispensable group. It is also one of the most dangerous professions in the world. The death rate is 12 times that of the US military stationed in medicine. According to the Himalayan Mountaineering Record Agency, documenting the past century, there were 327 fatalities on Mount Everest. Only a third are Sherpa Islands. With such dangerous work, but not as high a salary as people imagine, although it costs $6,000 at a time income, but also because the window for climbing Mount Everest is extremely short. Each tour guide can usually only be hired once a year. The fourth, brand reporter. The card reporter is arguably a real-life bomb disposal expert. It's a very specific and very high-risk industry. Requires extensive knowledge of explosives, and extremely familiar with electronic technology, mechanical principles, and other related knowledge, and it requires rigorous skills training. But the most important thing is to have super psychological quality. Face in a dangerous situation that may explode at any time. The OD hands must make decisions calmly. At work, they need to wear advanced blast suits with extensive experience, identification, and determination of explosives. Then, according to the explosives found, develop the safest and most effective method of explosive discharge. Need take into account their environment and the people around them. Then explosives need to be disposed of at the scene. Carry out carefully OD and bomb disposal. It can be said that every job they do, it's all about the pursuit of death. And it comes with a very high risk to life and safety. With the continuous development of technology, the technology for making explosives is also constantly being updated. This also greatly increases the difficulty of EOD. The third, lighthouse keeper. The lighthouse keeper is an extremely special occupation. Do only one thing in your life. The most lonely job in the world. It's a very important job. Lighthouses are an important navigational symbol for navigators. Their work directly affects the safety of maritime navigation. It can be said to be an indispensable pearl on the sea. At work, they need to ensure that the lighthouse is functioning properly, including daily maintenance and inspection of lighting equipment. Also check whether the tower body is rusted, stones and loose places. Ensure the stability of the lighthouse. At the same time, it is also necessary to monitor the weather and maritime conditions at all times by observing the weather, wind direction, etc. Provide marine mining information for passing ships. Remind to pay attention to safety, but it's a very lonely job. Lighthouses are usually built on the coastline, even in the middle of the sea. The principle is that cities and crowds have no satellite signal. The tower keeper can only be alone, or work with a small number of colleagues. And because the sea was so rough, it is highly likely to be swallowed or injured. And because traffic is extremely inconvenient, even if you are injured, it is difficult to get medical treatment in the first place. The second, firefighter. Firefighters are the government or disaster relief established by civil society. Rescue group member. It's also a shoulder. A career with great responsibility and mission. In this era of peace, firefighters are a very dangerous profession. If only to solve some social problems. Relatively undangerous. But in the event of a major fire, the casualties are immeasurable. When the fire station receives a fire alarm call, it will vary according to the task, send different teams to carry out the mission. After receiving the order, firefighters will be wearing protective clothing within 1 minute and took a fire truck to the scene of the disaster. If it is a fire scene, they will make a plan according to the specific situation first, then use the equipment to put out the fire. Repeated waiting of the scene after extinguishing the fire. To avoid reignition, firefighters are a great honor and a god. Occupation of the saints, but it's also an extremely dangerous profession. According to statistics, in 2014, there were 11 major fires in China. More than 30 firefighters died. In the 5 years from 2008 to 2012, more than 140 firefighters died on the front line. And the average age is only 24 years old. It hurts. The first war correspondent had a career. Claimed to be the closest person to death. The most dangerous time, bullets will graze the top of their heads. They were war correspondents. Also known as a military reporter is a type of journalist. It is also a special and noble profession. If you can't stop the war, then tell the world the truth. It's a motto that war correspondents keep fighting for. Full of nobility and shock. There are many famous war correspondents in history. Robert Capa, for example. Fan Chang, Jiang Zixuan, etc. They filmed the truth on camera. But some people also gave their lives for it. Or the cost of health. Many of them were war correspondents, accidentally wounded in a battle between two parties. Sacrifice. It is also known for its special occupational characteristics, the target of military threats or murders. Very cruel. It is arguably one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. And not only that, gunsmoke is flying on the battlefield, brutal and bloody. If you witness for a long time, psychological problems are also very likely. Psychological disorders such as post-traumatic stress disorder. It can seriously affect people's daily lives.